Good day, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to season two, episode one of exPRESSly Speaking, the industry podcast. I'm your co host, Aaron Katarik. I'm the senior vice president at Oahu Publications in Honolulu, Hawaii. As always, joined by my co host, Jim Smith, the national sales director at the Steel City Corp in
Good day, Aaron.
snowy looks like snowy Ashland, Ohio. And today we have a very special guest because we promised that we were taking this podcast global. And today we host Matthew Holdridge, the commercial manager at Allied Press Media in Dunedin, New Zealand on the South Island. So we're going to get to Matthew here shortly. But as usual, we have a background. We're going to start with snowy northeastern Ohio and find out what Jim's been up to. Probably shoveling.
I would be remiss if I didn't tell you some of those piles are a result of a little bit of our team effort here at Steel City. I'll keep this brief today because I'm very excited to get to Matthew and talk about all the great things that Allied Press does. But as our viewers and listeners may recall, that pretty much every episode, Aaron reminds us that he is in beautiful Honolulu, Hawaii, and occasionally he'll throw out a equally beautiful Ashland just to try and make me feel better. But I knew that Aaron was going to be 80 degrees today. And I also, I know that Matthews, where he lives, there it's summertime right now. So we are not here in Ashland. And this picture was taken this morning in Ashland, Ohio. This is a view outside of my parking lot. We're in a cycle where every 2 days we're having a snow event here in the great state of Ohio. So we're starting to pile it up around the world headquarters of Steel City Corporation, and tonight it's going to be below zero here Fahrenheit, and the snow is going to continue to grace us. But the upside is it is February 16th, so we only have, I don't know, 6 more months of winter maybe. Aaron, tell me where you are.
Well, first of all, it's not 80, it's 82 degrees. And for Matthew, that's Fahrenheit. So I
Yeah.
would say that's about I would say that's about 25 Fahrenheit because I've been told you multiply it twice and add 30 and that gets you to Fahrenheit. So 25, 50, 80. So 25 Fahrenheit or 25 Celsius, excuse me. I am inside one of the most beautiful stadiums in the world, Forsyth Bar Stadium in Dunedin, New Zealand, on the South Island. The only covered stadium in the country of New Zealand. Holds 30,000 spectators, has hosted a Rugby World Cup game, has hosted Elton John, and has hosted the Otago Daily Times Craft Beer Festival, most importantly, which we are going to get to later in the show. But I've been to Dunedin to visit Matthew and his team a handful of times. And I just can't tell you how beautiful this stadium is. I've never been inside of it. I'm virtually inside of it right now, but I've seen it from the outside, and it is just exquisite. So, with that said, we're going to get to Matthew. Matthew, welcome to the podcast. Matthew is the commercial manager at Allied Press, and Allied Press is on the South Island. And I've been to their corporate offices at the Otago Daily Times, and coincidentally, the ODT is the oldest daily newspaper in the entire country. But besides the flagship Otago Daily Times, they also own and operate a television station called TV 39 and a handful of other dailies and weeklies on the South Island. So, Matthew, maybe you could lead us off with a little bit about your background and who and what Allied Press is on the South Island of New Zealand.
Absolutely. Thank you, Aaron, and nice to meet you, Jim. I'm Matthew Holdridge, commercial manager at Allied Press. I've been here, in fact, this year is my 15th year, so I get an extra 2 weeks holiday this year, but I'm not quite sure where I'll go because we can't really travel outside of New Zealand at the moment. But yeah, I've been over here for about 16 years. I didn't start in the newspaper industry. I was in the telecoms in the United Kingdom, and then moved over to New Zealand with my family back then. And very quickly and thankfully got into the newspaper industry and got to know one of the owners of this business, Allied Press Limited, called Sir Julian Smith. It's still a family-owned business, independent. We are based on the South Island of New Zealand. We've got Dunedin and Christchurch are the two main centres. And about of the 5 million people that live in New Zealand, about a million, just over a million people live in the South Island. But you know, that by no means doesn't say we're not a sort of big part of our economy, particularly from an agriculture perspective. Until COVID lockdowns, our tourism, particularly with Queenstown, which I know a lot of Americans will probably be aware of, is a beautiful part of the world. A lot of Lord of the Rings and a lot of movies are filmed down there. I think Tom Cruise, Mission Impossible was filmed in Queenstown. So we've got a beautiful part of the world, and as a media company, we are based down in Dunedin, which is in the lower part of the South Island. Aaron, you talked about our business. So we've got the Otago Daily Times, which this year celebrates 160 years as New Zealand's oldest continuously running daily newspaper, 6 days a week. I look after all the circulation, marketing, and digital sales of that product, which is distributed. We do about 30,000 daily copies, Monday to Saturday. We also have our digital platform, odt.co.nz, which has grown hugely over the last 5 or 6 years, both from a user point of view and a revenue point of view, and is the most popular daily news site in the lower South Island. And that's predominantly driven, just like the newspaper, by local content. You know, we still employ around about 50 journalists, not just in Dunedin, but all over the region in small towns, who are gathering news every day, supplying those news stories on their local communities back to our head office to be published every day in the ODT. We have a print first strategy still. You know, if we've got stories that we know nobody else has got, then we'll hold on to them for the newspaper and release them at the same time digitally. We also launched our ODT is a website. It's mobile optimized. We do have an e-edition product that our subscribers are we're doing about 1,500 downloads a day now, so that's growing rapidly. And I'll talk when you talk a little bit about the impact of COVID, where that went for us. In addition to our daily newspapers, we've got another daily newspaper on the west coast of the South Island, and we've got about 22 weekly papers, community newspapers that reach pretty much every home in the South Island, about 450,000 homes. So we're the largest community newspaper provider in the South Island now. And we've acquired a few over the last few years. The Oamaru Mail, which is north of where we are, the Clutha Leader, which is only 8,000 copies, but is a vibrant, busy agriculture town, and that's a really important community paper for them that we've taken on and bought off one of our competitors who was sort of exiting community news media. We have the TV station, as you said, Channel 39, that we've been running for probably about 20 years now. We also, 2 years ago, picked up 6 glossy magazines to add to the one we have in Queenstown. So those magazines are Kiwi Gardener, which is distributed nationally via retailers and subscribers. We've got Style magazine in Christchurch. We've got Classic Driver for all the vintage car drivers. Rugby News, because rugby's our #1 sport. That's a 50-year-old magazine. And probably 1 or 2 more, I can't remember. But and those magazine editors won't be too happy, I can't remember. But that's the lion's share of us as I guess, a media company. And then we have a whole range of associated things we do. So we have a printing business in Alex that prints everything from your sort of corporate posters to corporate magazines, brochures, flyers, and even books as well. And that was a new revenue stream we started to pick up on in the last 4 or 5 years that really makes a difference to our bottom line. And we do events as well, so I'll talk about that a little bit more. So quite diverse, and that's probably helped us over the last, not just in the last 12 months with the impacts of COVID, but also probably over the last 10 years as media, you know, and obviously advertising was impacted on all news media as it's transitioned towards, you know, Google and Facebook and other channels. But that diversity of media has really helped us as a business. So we're in a pretty good place, but still there's always challenges, and that's what keeps me coming in every day, basically. Yeah. Hopefully that's a good enough back. And I do apologize for no background. It wasn't quite working. It is just to point out, it is a beautiful sunny day here. We are sort of coming towards February, March at the end of our summer. It is about 22 degrees here, which should be about 70, I guess, if we take Aaron's analysis. But it is beautiful and sunny, and I'm just looking out the window, and this is our IT training room. So hence we don't have, like, my marketing and sales room is much more prettier than this, but you know, this is, here I am.
Well, I wish I was having an ice cold Spates down by the Octagon in Dunedin, but here locked down, and you mentioned the lockdown. If there are two places in the world to be locked down in, Honolulu and Dunedin have to be two of the best. So sorry, Jim.
Hey, wait a second.
Yeah, sorry about that, but
Yeah.
but as you can tell from, you know, Matthew's explanation of his company, a very well-rounded and diverse company. Reminds me a lot of the company I work for here at Oahu Publications. Just the ability to get into not only print and digital publishing, commercial print, magazines, alt pub, niche pub, television. It's just an amazing story down there. And one thing I wanted to ask you, you mentioned COVID. What has it been like for your business and the business model? You know, here in America, a lot of companies have been severely negatively impacted because the advertising revenues are just not there. And there's not enough subscription revenues right now for most companies to pay the bills. So A, have you been negatively impacted? And B, has there been any new and improved product and services or innovation that's been born out of the pandemic?
Okay. Yeah. Well, I guess we should firstly put the pandemic in the context of New Zealand and how New Zealand's managed COVID. It started pretty much straight away as a government, and they did show great leadership where their strategy was eradication, basically. They didn't want COVID in New Zealand, and they felt that would have an impact, a positive impact on the economy and the people, basically. Largely, it has, and it's been successful. The one sector that has suffered massively within Otago, it is a big part of our economy, is tourism. You know, tourism and agriculture. Tourism was a $40 billion New Zealand dollar industry with the inbound tourism from Europe, America, China, India, hugely, you know, influential in what our economy. So that's basically gone. You know, we have only got a domestic tourism economy, and I'll explain the things we did. But in terms of our lockdown, and we are so lucky, it started, I think, early April and lasted for 6 weeks. And that was a level 4. They introduced levels, the government straight away. So level 1, 2, 3, and 4. Level 4's total lockdown. 5 million citizens in the country for 6 weeks stayed at home, except for essential services. Those essential services were going to the supermarket, hospital, doctors, and we managed to keep daily newspapers going. So that was the Otago Daily Times. For our business, we had to close all of our community papers for 4 weeks, and that meant 70% of our revenue was gone, basically. Which, you know, that's, I guess that, well, you know, I mean, you're losing money. Luckily, what the government did is they did a wage subsidy, basically up to 80% for all businesses that were impacted on revenue over about 50%. So if you had a 50% decline in revenue, the government would pay a subsidy based on the number of employees at 80%. And that helped. All our staff, including myself, went straight to 4 days a week, 80% of the time. We still worked more than that, but it helped. And obviously the government subsidy helped. And obviously having our shareholders, they were there and they were supportive as well. So that it definitely impacted, but because we were essentially in a 5 or 6 week lockdown and we pretty much eradicated COVID in that time, we then gradually came out of lockdowns to level 3, which meant you could go back to work, but you were encouraged to stay at home, down to level 2, where you could have gatherings of no more than 100, but back to work and normality. And by early June, and it's pretty much been the case until, well, apart from 2 small incidents, we have been out living, going on holiday. I've been to the stadium to watch rugby games when the UK and US are completely locked down. Australia, the rest of the world, we're in there in crowds watching sport. We're going on holidays locally, going to Emerson's craft beer with a bar full of people, which we'll talk about. So we've been very lucky. We've had 2. We've just gone back into another mini lockdown at the moment, just as there's some community cases appeared in Auckland. Because obviously, I think we've had and this is driving the economy at the moment. We've had about 80,000 returnees from around the world, New Zealanders all over the world, the US, UK, Europe, all wanting to come back to New Zealand because I guess of what we've achieved with COVID. But that's put pressure on our country in terms of people coming back and then trying to manage all our frontline workers, you know, because they have to go into a 2-week isolation now, you know, coming into the country. So it's been interesting, but look, level 2 is pretty good. You know, I'm running a soccer training, should I say, tonight. We're all still happening. You know, if we were in a lockdown, total lockdown, none of that would happen. So it was tough for a period of time, but we've managed to come through. You know, in terms of successes in that period, the Otago Daily Times in 4 weeks added 1,000 new subscribers. So to put that in some context, we normally add about 50 to 70 a month. So in a 4-week period, people leaving work and having to go and work at home, we signed up 1,000 new subscribers, and that was amazing.
Wow.
We've got that out. Yeah, that really lifted because our other subscription products are the Otago Daily Times. So our retail sales, you know, our business sales, because nobody was in, went down, and our hotel and motel sales, which were 700 or 800 a day, were down to 50 because basically there are no tourists. So for us as a business to add 1,000 new subscribers, and they were paying 6 days a week, really helped our bottom line there. So that was tremendous, and we managed to maintain that level with the subscribers, which is good. You know, 8 months after. So that was a real positive. We, from a advertising perspective, we very quickly as a team, we were sort of all operating remotely, but very quickly as a team, just before we were all about to leave the business, got together and talked about things we could do. And we developed, and this is not new, but we developed this support local campaign that Allied Press led. But what we did is we added a monetary value to that, and we said we've got a $3 million support local campaign. And what that meant was anybody who wanted to advertise on us, and this went beyond just the ODT, this went into every community across the South Island. Anybody who wanted to advertise, we were essentially giving them half-price advertising to help them get through the hard times, help them still communicate with and sell their products to locals across the South Island. So, and we saw that campaign. We advertised full pages in the ODT and community newspapers, banner advertising all over our sites. And we drove people, we got a lot of new inquiry from businesses who'd never advertised with us, who we then put packages together, who then advertised in that period. And they used about nearly $3 million worth of that fund, basically. So our margins were cut, but the important thing is we were supporting that economy, because if the economy is ticking over and they're winning, that means we're winning. So that was a real positive for us. We added some extra things into our newspaper, like a full page of puzzles when people had time. So we already had a full page. We added another full page because people had hours to kill. So we gave them something. What else did we do? We launched, because of the tourism, we launched a brand called exPLORE. So we had exPLORE Dunedin, exPLORE Queenstown, and we ran that in our newspapers and online. And then later in the year, about September, so we're sort of talking from June here, September, we launched, believe it or not, in this, we launched 2 magazines, one called exPLORE South, in the South Island, and one called exPLORE Dunedin. And they were distributed, really well supported by the local businesses and local government, and they were distributed within the South Island and North Island, encouraging people to come and visit. So we got 2 new products there. Given one of the products we had was our cruise ship product, which we used to print 120,000 of these cruise ship guides every year. And at the port here, we would hand them out to tourists from all over the world coming in for the day, and it would give them the chance to explore Dunedin through that. And that was a really successful product. Been going 10 years, just gone basically. So, you don't sit still. You sort of get, you've got to keep working. You've got to keep looking at ways and opportunities. So there were probably 3 of the main things I can think of that we did during or after COVID. Yeah.
It's amazing.
It's incredible.
What I'm seeing, and Jim, what you're probably seeing too, is media companies in the United States are contracting. Everything that excuse me, that Matthew just talked about is
Right.
about expanding.
Right.
Super impressive.
Improving the product as opposed to cutting the product. Matthew, again, we're kind of, our perspective is our perspective because we see what we see here, right? So
Yeah.
comparing some of the things you said, I'm just curious. Like you talked about getting 1,000 new subscribers in a short time frame. And so let's talk briefly. I was curious about your customer service setup. I looked on your website and I saw your opportunities for subscriptions, your easy to pay, your casual purchase, which I thought was a phenomenal idea. Your casual purchase top account. We'll get into that in a second. But
Yeah.
is that all? Among your a couple of daily papers, I think you said, and your 20 some community papers, is your customer service all centralized? So if I'm
Yes.
called any of those places, I'm calling to one centralized location. And is that location in-house at one of the houses?
Yes, it is. It's right here in Dunedin in this building where we are now. So we have a customer service team of about 4 or 5 people. Look, our bosses and everybody came in that 4-week period when we signed up those new subscribers. That team worked some long hours. The management team were involved in setting up new subscribers. It was all hands to the pump. In terms of being able to sign up to a subscription, we're in the process. We use actually an American-based company called Brainworks that provides our circulation system here.
Mhm.
They're giving us all the auto pay functionality and all of that, so it's fully integrated into our circulation system. But up until that point, about 3 months before lockdown, and it's probably the best thing we did, we launched something called ODT Store, and that is basically a Shopify account where people could go and buy subscriptions. They could buy books from us, so books we write ourselves and publish. And I can talk a little bit more about that. That's one of the new sort of product areas that's helping. And we used those channels as well as picking up the phone, ringing up and saying, I want to subscribe, to fulfill those 1,000 orders. And what we did literally on the Monday morning, we talked about what we'll do. We did a 25% offer on a subscription, 3, 6 or 12 months for new subscribers. The 4 days before we went to lockdown, and we advertised that in 450,000 homes across the South Island where we could deliver basically. So that sort of really drove that newspaper advertising, that offer drove people to subscribe, which was, fantastic. So it's all local, everything's here. We do have regional offices. So throughout our regions, we have offices where people can go in and they can get the forms and they can sign up. We try and meet all different ways. We don't just push everything to, look, let's just go digital only. There are still people who like to pick up the phone and walk into an office. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, at this point, I just want to thank our sponsor of exPRESSly Speaking, the Wilson Gregory Agency of Camp Hill, Pennsylvania. Thank you to the Gregory family and Rick Hively. And for those of you that may not know, they were recently acquired by McNeil and Company. So we look forward to watching that partnership blossom. So thank you to McNeil and Company, and the Wilson Gregory Agency. So Matthew, I don't know if you've seen any of our first 10 episodes, but we have a trivia question that I always give to Jim, one that he has no chance in heck in answering correctly so far.
So far, so good.
There is only one castle in the entire country of New Zealand, and it resides on the outskirts of Dunedin.
Hmm.
Do you happen to know the name of this castle?
Aaron, I believe I do.
You
Actually.
do?
Yeah. It's Holdridge, Matthew Holdridge Castle.
That would be incorrect.
Aaron
But the
Katerick Castle?
no, it is called Larnock Castle,
I
and
was
it
this
is
close.
you were close.
Yeah.
And one day you'll get to visit the beautiful city of Dunedin and
I hope
visit
so.
Larnock Castle like I have. It is a glorious structure with amazing views. Is that a lake or a river, Matthew, that it overlooks?
It overlooks, no, it's actually the ocean peninsula.
ocean.
So
Yeah.
it's it's the Pacific Ocean actually comes into the harbour. And yeah, that's where the harbor, the sort of peninsula is about 40 kilometers long. And it was where the original Maori and Europeans, they traveled into the peninsula. And where I live in McAndrew Bay, so James McAndrew was the first sort of one of the founders of I guess, Otago from a European perspective, or first provost. Larnock Castle is right above me, basically. So it sits there. It's about a 15-minute walk up quite a steep hill, if you're feeling fit. And I must say, 2 weeks ago, my nephew got married at Larnock Castle. So we had a great day there.
Oh, that's neat.
Really
What
good
a
day.
what a segue. What a segue.
Perfect.
Unbelievable.
Aaron?
Yeah, and you mentioned the Maori. I guess I failed to address you and welcome you in the Maori way, which is Kia ora. So I apologize for that. It's aloha here in Hawaii,
Yeah.
and Kia ora in New Zealand. So
Absolutely. Kia ora, Aaron. Yeah.
moving right along there, Jim and I, we're Midwest guys in the United States, and we have an affinity for media and beer. So this is a great time because we have some things to talk about with you, Matthew, that revolve around media and beer. One of which was a potential full page ad that I saw when I was visiting you at your offices that said, "Attention, Otago Daily Times subscribers, free beer." And it has a huge pint of Emerson's beer. And it says, if you take your subscription bill or your invoice and you can prove you're a subscriber to the ODT and you bring that to Emerson's, you're rewarded with a free pint. This is great way to build loyalty and membership. And can you just speak about this conceptually? I don't know if you ever executed this, but you had plans to do
look,
something like this.
we are New Zealand's craft beer scene has grown massively, and I know you've enjoyed one or two drops, Aaron, so that's good.
Of course.
We've got one of the original founding craft beer places called Emerson's. It's actually named after a guy called Richard Emerson. He's been running the business for about 20 years. It started literally in his garage, like most craft brewers, in Kaikorai Valley, which is a small suburb of Dunedin. And it grew from there. So it's now, you'll sort of look at the stadium behind you, Aaron, about 500 meters away is where the Emerson's brewery is and their big pub, and you get at least 20 different types of craft beers. So
Hey, how do you think I stumbled upon the stadium? I was on my way to Emerson's.
Oh, okay. When you said stumbled, I thought you'd stumbled after you'd been to Emerson.
Oh boy.
There you go. But no, it was great beer. My favourite's the Pilsner, but there's an orange roughy, which is a type of fish, but that's a really nice pale ale. And they've got the Tyree George beer, which is a dark. They've got a London Porter, which is a stout. So really lucky. But anyway, with that concept, that was just some real creative thinking from myself and actually one of our creative directors. We were just looking at ideas and ways and thinking, wouldn't it be cool to do this? I don't think liquor licensing laws would have quite allowed us to go away and start offering free beer. But
Right.
well, as a concept, we've got a good relationship with Emerson's. Few of the things they do, we were in the sort of original major sponsors of the Dunedin Craft Beer Festival. So that stadium behind you, once a year in November, becomes an entire craft beer festival, and used to be over one day. Now it's over 2 days, 12,000 people through. It's run by, believe it or not, the Otago University Students Association, who were looking to sort of expand what they do in terms of events. But I mean, the diversity of people goes amazing, and people from all over the country now travel, because no matter what the weather's doing outside, you're always dry inside. As you'll see from the picture behind you, there's a fully enclosed stadium. It's not even a retractable roof. It stays permanently closed underneath a polyurethane thing. But it allows you to do lots of events. We sort of got involved. Sport is one. There are concerts that you mentioned earlier, or maybe Elton John has performed there twice. Aerosmith, Neil Diamond, gosh, all sorts of people. What else we doing there other than watching rugby and sports is we, in partnership with the stadium, actually run for the last 4 years until COVID hit last year, a major home and living show. And that's allowed us to put a new revenue stream into our sort of Dunedin business. So in there, we are selling space inside for exhibitors. We're selling sponsorship and zones. We had the Whitestone Cheese food zone. So if you ever get to come back down here, Whitestone Cheese in North Otago is a local cheese maker that sells nationally now. Beautiful bries and cheddars and different cheeses there that go down very well with the beer, and sometimes with the Pinot Noir in Central Otago, which is even better.
Yes.
So we ran this major festival, getting anywhere between sort of 5,000 and 7,000 visitors a year, and then we'd sell products around that. So we had a big, if you bought a package to exhibit, you got advertising in a tabloid. We did a 40-page home show tabloid that was inserted in the ODT a week before. We ran advertising in the 4 or 5 weeks leading up to it, and we did all sorts of activations in there. So we went from sort of zero revenue in November related to anything to do with home shows. It was just run a paper, to having a fairly sizable event, and we're looking to run it again this year as our 5th year, but in September, so slightly earlier, because the craft beer festival's a week later. So we want to sort of give ourselves a wee bit of space, and also from a time perspective.
Did you have did the Craft Beer Fest in November go on this year, November of 2020? It did.
It did. It was amazing. I didn't actually get to it this year, and there was a really good reason. My wife dislocated her ankle when we went for a walk in Central Otago, and she got a free helicopter ride back to Dunedin in emergency helicopter. And I drove back, but it sort of, I was, like you do, sort of looking after my wife. So yeah, I didn't manage to go, but my friends who all went sent me plenty of photos of them having a great time. Yeah.
Yeah, I love to go, no doubt. Hopefully, I can get off the rock someday and get back down there.
You've talked about beer, cheese, and wine. Aaron's going to
Holy Trinity.
He's going to pass out in a minute.
I mean,
his screen's going to be empty because he's going to throw the headphones down and jump on the next transport over.
It's the Holy Trinity. Yeah, think of the South Island, though. You said beer, cheese, wine, sports, media. Yeah. My 5 passions right there.
Yeah. And it's open. I mean, they've people are allowed to do things.
Not to us, but it's open for them to enjoy. Which as you saw, they took advantage of that by promoting Discover Dunedin, Discover the South Island, encouraging people from New Zealanders from other parts of the country to come down and enjoy what they have to offer.
The whole support local.
Yeah, absolutely. It's. I'd love the borders to be open. I'd love the world to be traveling again, and everyone's welcome. Welcome definitely. So we'll get there, but it's we just have to be a little bit patient, I guess. And once we're there, we'll be back with a bang. So yeah.
So Matthew, you've talked about how basically event sponsorship, event marketing, event organizations become a revenue source for you and large scale events, it sounds like. Have you also targeted like Aaron's reference to your beer ad? Have you gotten into the events specifically for subscribers, more like loyalty events? Have you gone down that path yet, or is that something you've done?
We do, yeah, we do. We have for a long time actually. We do, because we are literally the main media in the South Island, and we will reach 77% of all people in our delivery areas in a week through print and digital. We sponsor everything from the local school fair through to major theatre productions to sporting events to all sorts of things. So because we're involved in that sponsorship, we'll often they will invest. We always encourage them to invest a little bit of money with us because, as I say, we can't live on bread and water. So we get them to invest a little bit, but then we give them a whole lot more back in terms of media space and coverage, advertising support, promotional ideas. And then what we'll do is we'll ask them to give us some benefits in return. So can you give us some subscriber offers? Make it $5 or $10 cheaper to go to an event, or can they get access to tickets to, say, Neil Diamond, for example, major global star, perfect for our reader demographic. We work with the stadium in partnership, and our subscribers got a 5-day window to buy the best tickets first. So we're always looking at things like that, and we have for a long time. I think getting into the event specifically does have subscriber benefits. So we did do a subscriber offer to go to the home show, but also it's a new revenue stream. We are looking at ways. We're still using our main core products that have eyeballs on those products every day, but we're driving them to events where we've got a stake in them, because advertising revenue in printed media, particularly in the dailies, our communities grew last year, believe it or not, just a few percentage points, but it grew from an advertising point of view. But our dailies have been under pressure for a while. So it's all about looking at new opportunities. So events is one. I should say, and I will be doing a disservice to my Christchurch team. They run two major events. They run a home show in Christchurch. They run a major City to Surf running event with about 10,000 runners. So they own that entire event. They organize it all. They sell tickets. They sell all sponsorship, and then they get to keep the profit basically. And that's an event that's been going 40 years. So we are using. We know we've got eyeballs. We are using those eyeballs to generate revenue in other ways. So a couple of other examples we've been doing over the last 4 or 5 years is producing books. So we've got a thing called Ask a Chef, which every week or every 2 weeks goes in the paper, and it just our readers say, "Oh, I went to this cafe. I really like the caramel slice. Can I get the recipe?" And we'll go and ask the cafe, the chef, because they like the promotion in the paper. They'll give us a recipe. We'll write it up and thank the reader. And so what we did, we've been doing this for about 10 years. We've collected all these recipes from cafes and restaurants and bars, and we've created books. We're on to our 3rd edition now, and we'll design it in Dunedin, we'll lay it out in Dunedin, we'll write it. Obviously, we've already photographed it because it's been in the paper, and then we'll put that together in a book, print it in Alexandra, which is our printing business. So we don't send it offshore to, say, China, which will print it at half price. Our owner's very much about, he'd rather take a bit less margin and keep the business locally. And then we will then actually market the book and sell the book via our offices, via our new ODT store, online, and events. So we will sell that. And in the last year, we've been working with some major retailers as well for them to sell the book. So we're selling anywhere between 3,000 to 5,000 books a year now. That generates a really good return to the bottom line, basically, using our own content. So the cookbook was one. Life and Times was a look back at, it's a 220-page book, and it's really heavy, Aaron, but I'll try and get one sent to you with some Emersons, so you can enjoy your beer while you're reading it. But that's been a phenomenal book. We've printed 3,000 copies of that. We've sold nearly half already, and that's a pictorial history of Otago, basically. And that's from our archives. You know, we've got an archive goes back 160 years. So, you know, it's a great book. So there are a few of the other things that we've been doing this year. Yeah.
This is great. You know, so Jim, I've known Matthew for a few years, and Grant McKenzie, the CEO of Allied. So I've been aware of how impressive this organization is. But I'm going to ask you a question. After hearing, you know, all of the things Allied is doing, even in a pandemic, how impressive is this to you?
Oh, it's you know, we referenced it a little earlier. I mean, you know, the attitude and the effort and the dedication and commitment to moving forward and coming up with new ideas and new sources and new branding ideas and topics, all the things he's gone through, is it's refreshing is probably one quick word I would come to mind, as opposed to, you know, unfortunately, you know the stories, Aaron, as well as I do. You know, we're reading every day in our industry journals here, you know, this facility's closing, this facility is being you know, consolidated into another facility, this will cost this many jobs, you know, and I don't want to knock, you know, anybody specifically, but, you know, I see my own community newspapers dwindling in page count, you know, consolidating coverage from areas, lack of that.
Hmm.
Matthew specifically mentioned about 50 journalists, I think, in the building earlier. You know, we're not seeing that. And so it's great. It's exciting. It's exhilarating. And I hope viewers see that and hear what he has said and the amazing things they're doing there. Because, you know, honestly, the concepts have been discussed here, they just haven't been executed
Yes.
here, and certainly not what sounds like executed nearly as well.
Well, you know, viewers of this podcast, when they watch this, they're going to think that all the three of us do is consume news and consume beer. I want to get off the beer theme, but we got one more story to talk about, and that's the Spates Brewery in Dunedin. 125-year anniversary.
Yeah.
They Emerson's is a more local brewery, but I think Spates is more national in terms of their reach and the beers they have to offer. But they had a 125-year anniversary, Matthew, and you got
Yeah.
together with them, and they
Yeah.
wanted to use the Otago Daily Times as a vehicle to get their message out about their celebration. So let's hear about that.
Yeah, it was a few years ago now. Yeah, Spates is the original New Zealand brewery. Started brewing beer, I think now probably close to 150 years ago, probably 150 years ago. But a few years ago, they wanted to really mark their anniversary. So what they did and what we did was we sort of took the unusual step of wrapping the entire Otago Daily Times in their advertisement, their brand, basically celebrating that as well. So that was, you know, a tremendous way for them to get their message out. You know, it was being delivered back there into a huge amount of letterboxes. The readership, you know, was massive. So that was great. The same company now owns Spates and Emerson's, but they keep them local. They're not moving them out of Dunedin, and you know, it's all about that local people. So yeah, no, they did a great job, and I must admit, in the last year, what we have seen is one of our biggest, and this may be something that you guys, people who watch this, need to take back to some of their advertisers. One of the biggest Australasian retailers called Harvey Norman. You know, Google it, Harvey Norman, sell everything. Their you know, bedrooms, lounge room furniture, electrical, computers, gaming, everything. For the last 6 months since lockdown, when we did get a huge amount, I must admit, we got a huge amount of support from the government. The Ministry of Health in New Zealand were taking out full page and double pages almost every day in the main media, and they were paying rate card. You know, they wanted their messages out, and that was great because that offset a big decline in daily advertising revenue. But once that stopped and we were back to some sort of normality, Harvey Norman pretty much stopped all their digital advertising and pretty much, and then wrapped every daily newspaper in New Zealand, literally wrapped the paper with their brand, and they've been doing it for almost 6 months on a Friday and Saturday and on a Sunday for the Sunday dailies. And they've seen huge growth in revenue and sales in their businesses because people are not going away on holiday. Their disposable income, they've still been earning money. They've still been, instead of spending it on overseas holidays or things, they're spending it domestically. So we've seen big consumption here. And if there's one message I take away, believe in your audience, believe in what that local content. And COVID taught us we can't sit dwelling on things for too long. We've just got to get on and do things. And we have been doing things for a few years, but if you've got an energetic, enthusiastic team, I'm just one person in 400 people here. Yeah, I'm part of the senior leadership team, but it's the people below that make a real difference. So if you can sort of engender that enthusiasm in the younger generation and get them in working with you, then you can do anything.
Yeah, it's just a super impressive story, and I'm just so glad we were able to have you on as a guest, so our readers, viewers, listeners of this podcast can just listen to your story, because I think it's refreshing, and there's a lot of lessons to be learned from what you and Grant and Sir Julian Smith, are doing down there, and I'm glad we've been able to network over the last few years and share some ideas, because you certainly have a lot of great things going on there. So I think your time is valuable. I know we've been at this for maybe 45 minutes to an hour. I'm just going to end. We're going to have a second trivia question, Jim. This is the first time we've done this. So,
because I've done so well in the first three.
You've done so well. The more opportunities,
Blind squirrel finds a nut theory. I got it.
This one you might be able to get. I don't know. We'll see. So, the national rugby team of New Zealand is nicknamed the All Blacks. They're one of the most successful national teams in any sport in global athletics. I believe they win or have won 87% of their matches.
Oh,
they have a logo on either their breast or their arm. Do you know what that logo is and what it represents?
I knew the 87% victory rate percentage, and this is the team that does the what is the term that they
the haka?
The haka, yes,
Right.
yes. So the logo is it's a can of Emerson's.
It probably should be, but it's a leaf of the silver fern, correct, Matthew?
Yeah,
can you tell us the significance of the silver fern?
Well, it's our, I guess it's our national, it's an indigenous plant in New Zealand. It's our national, it grows everywhere. We have the silver ferns, which is our netball team. We have the black ferns, which is the rugby team. And I'll get some of these wrong. We have the white ferns, which is the cricket team. So we have, it's such a prevalent part of our society. I think they did look to try and change the flag a few years ago, and the fern was a big part of the concept, but we've not sort of quite moved away from, I guess, still keeping the Union Jack in the top corner with the stars, the 6-star or 4 stars, should I say. No, it's a big part of our culture, along with, and I must say, our Māori culture is growing and growing in everything we do, and the All Blacks, they respect that, and they lead that through the haka, but also other things they do, and other teams that they play against also respect that. When you've got 15 big blokes sort of screaming and shouting at you and doing the haka, it can be quite intimidating, but they probably use that as much to get them excited about what they're going to do in the next 80 minutes, as the All Blacks use it as part of their cultural, I guess, manner and what they do. So, yeah.
Well, I was telling Jim before you hopped on, I had the pleasure of actually touring Eden Park, the national stadium in Auckland, or in Mount Eden, I guess. It's just a wonderful place, and it just oozes history and excellence. And I had the pleasure of sitting in Kieran Reed's locker. I
Oh,
think he's the second most captained player in
Yeah.
All Blacks history, if I'm not mistaken. But
yeah. He's-
Matthew, go ahead.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, he's retired. He just retired. He just retired as part of the World Cup winning team with Richie McCaw, who was probably our most successful captain. So yeah, no, he's a great player.
Well, we know your time is valuable, Matthew. I really appreciate you taking time to sit with us today and tell your story. And our viewers and our listeners are just going to thoroughly enjoy this. We promised them we were going global, and we did. And please join us in episode 2 as we welcome John Wiley, the president and founder of Madison Marketing in Punta Gorda, Florida. And at this time, we're going to play a quick 1-minute video that talks about McNeil and Company and Wilson Gregory Agency coming together. So enjoy.
Thanks, Aaron.